And yeah, if you didn't know what a real Longchamp looked like, you might think that the fake one was legitimate. Hello, welcome back to Classics with a Quirk, where we talk about contemporary and luxury designer items and brands with a touch of silliness. This is the kind of content that you find interesting. Please do like this video and subscribe for more of it. Thank you. This isn't something that I've talked on my channel really about before, but I really enjoy going thrifting. I grew up in a family that thrifting was kind of a necessity to get things like clothing and other goods, and my family was in general very thrifty. So if we needed something, we tended to not get it new in a lot of cases. I no longer really have to go thrifting, but it's something that I enjoy doing. I like seeing what is and isn't there. I consider it kind of a treasure hunt. And in terms of bags, I actually often find those treasures. As some of you may know, I'm really interested in vintage bags and vintage leathers, and I actually got my start on my luxury and bag loving journey through Vintage Coach. And I found my Vintage Coach bags primarily in thrift stores. My Coach Court, this one over here, this was a bag that I found in the thrift store. It was, I believe, $30 and I got it half off for $15. It was so dehydrated that I thought it was almost bone, and it rehabbed to this beautiful taupe color. I do rehab my bags. I wash them, I clean them up, I condition them, I buff them, and I really enjoy that process. I'm actually going to be making a video soon about this horribly disgusting Coach bag that my father found, and it's like awful and gross and moldy, but it's a really cool bag. It's red and it's really nice, or it will be really nice once I clean it up. So I'm going to make an entire video about the cleanup process, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe for more content, by the way. But this is what I mean in terms of finding treasures. I get to look and I don't mind touching things that are old and a little bit dirty. I wash my hands and I clean them up. So it's not something that grosses me out. It might for some people, but it doesn't bother me. So recently I was actually in a thrift store primarily for a treasure hunt, like fun activity. And I found not one, but two Longchamp bags. And this is very funny because one is real and one is fake. And I found them both at the same time in the same thrift store. And I thought it might be fun to make a video for you about the differences between a real Longchamp bag and a fake bag, and what a fake bag might look like and how it's supposed to be similar to a real one, but there are some very obvious differences, and I'll go into that now. So these are the two bags that I found in the thrift store. They aren't cleaned up yet at all, and I'm probably only going to clean up the real one. Honestly, I'm probably going to get rid of the fake one. But this one was selling for $1.80, and this one was selling for, I think, this one was selling for $6.40, but it was half off, so I got it for $3.20. So, about $5 for both of these bags, including a real Longchamp bag and a fake Longchamp bag in a video, so this is fun. The bags are just both nylon bags, the Longchamp style, with the supposedly real leather handles and like a top flap like this and a button, and you can like fold them up to make them really small. This is primarily what Longchamp is about. You can fold them up and make them really small. They both have a zipper on the top, zipper to zip them open and shut. And yeah, if you didn't know what a real Longchamp looked like, you might think that the fake one was legitimate. Put down in the comments below which one you think is the real one and the fake one, because I'd just be interested to see, like, just from looking here, which one do you think is the real one and the fake one? Is it the more expensive bag, or is it the smaller bag? Who knows? I do, and soon you will too. So I'm going to start by spoiling it and saying that the pink bag is the real bag. The purple one is an obvious fake, especially once you look at the details. So first of all, this is the fake bag, okay? So look at, it's got Longchamp emblazoned in the front, and it's got like a little rendition of a horse down here, and the supposed established year, and then this kind of buttony thing. So it's on stamped looking leather with a raw side, and this stamp is just a regular typical stamp. Notice that the leather itself is very stiff, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not real leather or fake leather or whatever. It means that the leather doesn't wear very soft, which is an interesting sign that you might want to keep in mind. So that's just what this looks like. You see how the horse is stamped into the leather, and it's like a rough outline, and then it's got Longchamp on it and a plain button. This is the real one. This is the real flap, and you'll right away be able to notice the difference. First of all, it doesn't have Longchamp like stamped anywhere, but it has a very, very detailed horse that's raised stamped as opposed to into the leather. And then the button has Longchamp 1948 stamped into it. So you see there's so much more detail here and here versus the fake one where there's not very much detail and it looks a lot rougher. I'm not going to be able to get them both in, but let's see. You see how one just looks cleaner and honestly looks like better quality. So that's a really good hint. And also notice that this one is still leather, but it's floppy. It's worn. It's possibly a little more worn than this one, but this is very stiff and almost plasticky, and that's something to keep in mind. Like that's actually another way that I was able to tell right away, is that I could feel the difference. This leather just feels better quality and more supple, where this is much stiffer and more plasticky. But also because this purple one was in kind of worse shape, it was easier to tell the difference because of how it wore. So again, you've got these really floppy leather handles because they've worn soft and supple, and it's obviously leather. It's just leather. There's no rips in it, but it's not glazed coated. It's a very, very thin layer of paint that's not glazed. And there's nothing that's like ripping off or ripping out. It's just one piece of leather that's stitched together very cleanly. It's clean over here too, like on these sides. And it's one raw piece of leather. In contrast, you have the fake one that has this very, very thick edged glazing. See that? It's very thick and edge glazing, and it's curling off and kind of ripping up, and you can see how thick it is from how that's curling up. And then even more telling, you've got a little bit of a rip over here. You see that little white rip over there? That's telling about the quality of the supposed leather, that there's a white kind of fabric inside lining. That's not the real kind of dealio that we're looking for. Here, you see it coming apart here, and it's like poking out with the glazing ripping off. Like that's just a pretty obvious quality difference between the two that really shows you just how not great a quality this thing is. So that's number 3, I guess, the glazing and handles and the stitching on top of the flap and the buttons. So 3, 4, something like that. Let's move on. The zipper. Now this is a little bit tricky because this zipper is obviously not the one that came with this. Like it's a silver one, and this little ring is very beat up and doesn't match this gold hardware at all. So even if this was a real one, the zipper was obviously replaced, and that's just something to keep in mind, that zippers are often one of the first things to break with old pieces. So you'll sometimes have replacement zippers, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the piece is fake, but it does mean that the zipper isn't the original one. So that's just, something to keep in mind. This is just a plain unbranded zipper, and it doesn't look very good. In contrast, we have the branded Longchamp zipper with the same detailing of the horse as on the flap, and it's a very nice, very sturdy piece of metal. It's very reflective and shiny. It's got all the stamped words and numbers on it. It very much matches the zipper pull and the zipper pulley dealio thing that I don't know the name of. And it's a good quality piece of metal. The zips are about the same, but this is a pretty nice zip. Like they both zip fine, and they're both, a nylon plasticky canvas, but this one is much rawer, and it's let's see if I can't find an obvious part. You see those white marks in it? That's the plastic folding and getting creases in it and being the kind of material that keeps those creases inside of it. Whereas the Longchamp one is slightly lined. And I say slightly because of the type of lining it is. Let me open it for you. So you see the difference here where you've got this is the colored pocket, and you've got lining inside that's different color. And this varies depending on the Longchamp bag. but it's very clearly a separate additional piece of lining. It's not just a raw bag with the underside of the plastic, underside of the nylon. That's another thing too. The nylons feel different. This feels like very much just plastic, and this feels kind of suppler and smoother and more satiny a little bit. So really, if you can touch it and you know how quality feels, that's a really good sign. If you don't, look at this other details to kind of learn all of what authentic looks like, and then you're able to sort of learn about the quality details. At this point, it's kind of interesting, but at this point I can tell glove tan leather by feel. If I will sometimes like go into a thrift store and I'll just like touch things that look like they could be quality, and you know, and I'll touch it and be like, oh no, that's plastic. Or I touch it and be like, oh, I think that's vintage Coach. And I've actually correctly identified a lot of vintage Coach pieces, authentic vintage Coach pieces, because there's actually a pretty big counterfeit vintage Coach market. And I'm able to be like, yeah, this is real vintage glove tan leather versus that's not the real vintage glove tan leather. So the inner lining is also a good sign. And because this is an older bag, it's actually, you can actually see there's a little bit of a rip in the lining here, which shows you the pink underside. And that's actually a sign of the quality and authenticity of the bag, that there is a second layer. And that's just kind of a neat thing to know. I don't mind that there's a little bit of a rip. Again, like I got this for under $2, so I don't really care. And I'm gonna be cleaning it up. There is some corner wear. In fact, there's actually a couple of holes in it. But for what I would be using it for, that doesn't super matter to me. And again, I got it for less than $2, and I don't mind. That's okay. That's okay. They both fold up. This one folds up a lot easier. It's a lot less stiff. You'll notice that this bends okay, but it's also like kind of a thick material. This one is harder to bend, not because the material is thicker, but because it's much more stiff and plasticky. That's a big thing. It's just a different kind and cheaper, thicker plastic. And that's a big thing for me, is the actual make of the nylon piece. So yeah, so this was just a really fast video. I thought that it was interesting to compare the two. If you like this video, I really would appreciate a note about it. And if you'd like me to do a little bit more fake versus real, I can. I don't own any counterfeits on purpose besides this one, but I can point out different inconsistencies in things like that. Super fakes are a lot harder, but especially for vintage pieces, it's a little bit easier to tell, and I can do a lot of that through pictures. I did actually make a video a little bit ago about buying a fake YSL card holder from the real, and in that I really go into the details about why and how I determined that my card holder was probably fake. And so I would recommend that video. It's a really interesting one, even though it's a little bit long, so maybe check that out. And yeah, I have a cool new Longchamp Le Pliage tote for $1.80 and a fake one for $3.20 that I'm probably gonna get rid of. If you like this video, please do give it a like, because it super duper helps the algorithm, and subscribe for more content because it helps the algorithm even more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.